konfirmadong burado na at hindi na makita sa opisyal na webpage ng Guinness World Records ang tinaguriang greatest robbery of a government by the Marcoses. Ito ang mainit na pinag-uusapan ngayon sa social media sapagkat lumalabas nito na walang katotohanan ng greatest robbery record na paratang kay dating Pangulong Ferdinand E. Marcos at sa kanyang buong pamilya. Ang nasabing record na simulang lumabas sa website ng Guinness noong 1987 sa panahon ng pag-upo ni dating Pangulong Cory Aquino ay tumagal na mahigit 3 dekada. Ayon sa tagapagsalita ng Guinness World Records, muli nilang sinisiyasat ang naturang record ni Marcos upang masiguro na tama ito. Quote, Guinness World Records takes very seriously, now more so than ever, our responsibility to be a source of reliable, accurate information. Any record which has not been recently researched and verified by independent sources will be re-examined to ensure its accuracy, as well as its compatibility with Guinness World Records values and the values of the audiences we serve. Unquote.
Alam niyo kanina, pumunta ako doon sa website ng Guinness Book of Records at tiningnan ko doon yung The Greatest Robbery, yung kay President Marcos. At tama pala talaga yung sinabi ng mga friends ko na tinanggal na daw ng Guinness Book of Record. So, ito na-realize na rin siguro ng Guinness Book na talagang a mere propaganda lang yung mga paratang kay President Marcos. Kasi 'di ba, ang nagparatang lang naman noon, ang data nila ay nanggaling sa Aquino government, 'di ba? Nakalagay doon sa kanilang website noon. Pero napatunayan naman talaga maraming mga court decision na acquitted at talagang dismiss yung halos lahat ng kaso. Maganda itong senyales na natatauhan na rin talaga at namumulat na ang mga mata ng mga tao sa buong mundo. Hindi lang ang mga Filipinos. Kasi katulad na lang ng isang kaibigan kong foreigner. Sabi niya sa akin na President Marcos is the greatest president before Duterte. Sabi niya sa akin. Kasi daw, ang dami daw sa kanyang mga nagkukwento. Yan, mga Filipino rin nagkukwento sa kanya na yun nga, napakaganda nga daw ng buhay ng panahon ni President Marcos at talagang ang mga bilihin ay napakamura, which is totoo naman talaga. So dito, yung mga foreigners sa iba-ibang mundo, nare-realize na nila na talagang propaganda lang yung mga ipinaratang kay President Marcos, di ba? So, kapag nakikinig nga ako noon ng mga court decisions, no, ang word talaga doon na natatawa talaga ako, yung bigo, ibinasura. Bigo ang PCGG or ibinasura. Iyak talaga dito yung mga dilawan niya kasi kahit anong ginawa nila, sinampahan nila ng almost 1,000 cases, 986 cases, pero lahat wala man lang silang napakulong, wala man lang silang napatunayan. Talagang mere propaganda para lang sirain si President Marcos. So dito, napakaganda talaga mga friends. Tama yung sinabi ni President Marcos that the history will judge me rightfully. Napaka-visionary talaga ni President Marcos, no? Wala siyang galit sa puso. Alam niya na magkakaroon din siya ng katarungan. Kinikilabutan tuloy ko. Tumatayo yung aking mga balahibo pag naisip ko to. Kasi, biro mo, ilang taon silang ginanito ng media, ng mga dilawan. Pero ito ngayon, nalalaman na ng buong mundo na wala silang kasalanan.
After 1986, there came all of these issues that Marcos stole the money of the Filipino people. But what happened was, they did not file any case against Ferdinand Marcos here in the Philippines. As a matter of fact, what happened was, they were brought in exile in Honolulu, we all know this, and it was there in the United States of America that actually had, in conjunction with the Philippine government, the filing of criminal cases against them. They were in Honolulu at the time. And so what happened was, the first case that they filed actually was in the Los Angeles court. This was the trial court under Mariana Feltzer. She was the judge at the time, and they filed again, as you've said, several of these cases saying that the money that Marcos stole from the Filipino people was brought to the United States of America, and that is why the courts of America will have jurisdiction over the persons of Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos. So that was it. But where do I come in as far as that was concerned? Well, at one time, we came to visit after a year actually that I was on hold order here in the Philippines. We came to visit President Marcos and Mrs. Marcos in Honolulu, and that was when we first learned that there were actually a number of cases that were filed against them. After that, we also learned that there were other cases filed elsewhere in the United States, also for human rights violations. But right now, let's discuss, or let me talk about this so that you would know what I know about this firsthand, as you would say, up close and personal. So, the first case that they filed in LA, in Los Angeles court, was the RICO case. This is the Racketeering and Influenced Corrupt Practices Organizations Act, RICO. That's the acronym for that particular law of the United States of America. This refers to criminal syndicates like the mafiosi, the mafia, or whatever other underground sleazy work is being done by those illegal activities. And that was exactly how they pictured Ferdinand Marcos, that he ran the Philippine government as a criminal enterprise. And the money of the Filipino people, he stole this and then brought it to the United States of America. And there he purchased several properties, and that is why America had jurisdiction over them. Now let's get to the bottom of this. Remember that all the documents as far as the Philippine budget is concerned are all filed in the Department of Justice of our country. All of this include what we call as the General Appropriations Act. That is where you see all the money that we are collecting or the government is collecting as far as taxes are concerned, all the money that comes in as far as investments are concerned, and that is all part of the budget. And that is supposed to be programmed every year as to where it is going to go. First, they go to the salaries and the maintenance of the government itself, and then next you have all the programs and the projects that the government wishes to implement. Those are the documents, and it is there in the Department of Budget. And then, of course, you also have documents that they found in Malacanang. When the Marcoses left, as you have already seen this on television, they left quite hurriedly. And so all the documents were just either scattered all over the place, or they were in the vaults, or they were in the filing cabinets. And so all of those documents were sorted out, and they were brought in a certain residence, and together with the incoming officials of the Philippine government, Salonga and Mrs. Aquino and Fidel Ramos and Juan Ponce Enrile, several others, looked over these documents and they gathered them together. And that was part also of the documents that they presented to the United States of America. There was some kind of a legal understanding between, at the time, it was Salonga and a lady named Tensing, that's her family name, and they had this mutual legal agreement that whatever documents either America or the Philippine government has will be part of the evidences that they will present in court against the Marcoses. In addition to that, whatever other documents the Marcos may have carried with them when they went to Honolulu after the American government flew them, got them from the Clark Air Force Base and then to Guam and then to Honolulu. When they landed at the Honolulu airport, all the other documents that they may have carried with them, the United States government also confiscated them. So, and then the Swiss government likewise had documents of the bank accounts written under the names of foundations. As I already mentioned even before, they were not under the name of Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos, they were under the name of foundations. So you could see that three governments, the Philippine government, the United States government, and the Swiss government gathered together all possible documents that they could use in order to file the criminal case against Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos. Now, a curiosity way of looking at things is where a journalist usually would go. Sometimes you call them investigative journalists, or sometimes you would call them just inquisitive journalist. My interest there was precisely that. Not only because I was already working in Malacanang at the time, when all of these things were supposed to have been unearthed, but also because I would also like to find out by myself, for myself, that the persons I was covering, as far as television is concerned, and that is Ferdinand Imelda, were actually in some way involved in all the accusations that were coming out in the media that they stole the money of the Filipino people. And so it happened that at the time, there was nobody, practically nobody, who wanted to be associated with them, especially those who made money on them, those who were able to gain favors from them. And so you could see that nobody would want to go there to defend them or to help them out. And so I don't know what happened. It is not coincidence, but by a strange twist of fate, Mrs. Marcos called up and said that they were having all of these problems with the cases, etc., and all of this, and if I could come to help. Well, the reason for this was because there was nobody else, actually, that would come to, at least to be by their side, perhaps, or something, some kind of a moral support. So that began, actually, the journals that I wrote as far as interviewing both Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos, or the inner side of their stories, not the ones I was covering for the public, but perhaps to find out exactly what their answers would be regarding all those accusations. And that was when President Marcos said that you may accuse me of anything, but I did not steal the money of the Filipino people. But again, that will have to be proven. So what happened there was, excuse me, when the trial was going on, in the court of this Mariana Felzer of the Los Angeles court, the court had to dismiss the case because there were no evidences that were given in as far as the court was concerned that showed that Marcos got the money from the Filipino people, or the money from the budget of the Philippines, or the money from the treasury of the Philippines. So the court dismissed the case. But there was an appeal. The appeal was undertaken by the former ambassador of America to the Philippines. You will remember his name, Michael Armacos. And so he petitioned the court that you cannot do this, dismissing this case, because we will be able to find out also some kind of an evidence about the guilt of Marcos and Imelda. So the court instead, what happened was, with that appeal, it was elevated to the Ninth Circuit Court of Los Angeles. What happened there? Well, the justices also reviewed the case. There was only one witness, and that was a certain Mr. Fernando. And that was in the Court of Appeals, the cases were also dismissed. Why? Because according to the records of the court, and this was a statement made by the justices, this Mr. Fernando only testified to the newspaper accounts that were brought to court. In other words, whatever came out in the newspapers, that's exactly the kind of evidence they presented. There was nothing new. There was no exact evidence, clear evidence, because remember, this is a criminal case. And even in the United States of America, the most powerful country in the world, you need to have evidence that is beyond reasonable doubt. So that's exactly what happened. It was dismissed. So you could see that the court in the Ninth Circuit Court of LA also dismissed that, and it is very interesting for those of you studying law and perhaps even the lawyers, if you would just go over the statements made or the decision made by the justices in that court. They said something like this: if Marcos at gunpoint went to the Central Bank of the Philippines or to the National Treasury and got the money of the people there, and then kept that money under his mattress, and then sometime got the money out and bought real estate properties here in the United States of America, then there is actually that fraud, or there you could see that Marcos stole the money of the Filipino people. But unless sometime, at any time, you are not able to come up with such an evidence, then indeed, that case will have to be dismissed. Plus, of course, there was what is known as the act of state doctrine, which means that the act of a sovereign state cannot be questioned by another sovereign state, because then this criminal case should have been tried here in the Philippines. And that's exactly what I have been trying to say all these years. Why did they not allow President Marcos to return to the Philippines so that he would be able to defend himself here in our courts under the administration of Mrs. Aquino, where all of us will actually be listening to his defense? And so all of you now that are questioning what money did he steal, or those of you that are still accusing him he stole the money, why did you not give him that chance to come home? That is the most fundamental human right of any citizen of our republic, to be able to confront all of those that are alleging these accusations against him. But it was never done. Why did they not ask him to come home and stand the trial itself? Well, it was not done. So you could see that up to this day, with all the questions being raised, this is the man who could have been able to explain to all of us, where did you get all that money, all the accounts that were found in those documents that they saw in Malacanang, all the documents that they saw that they got from Switzerland, and whatever else they suspect, whatever else they would surmise, whatever else they would conclude, all of this, he would have been able to explain it and defend himself, and then there would have been a period already. Did he steal the money of the Filipino people? But it never happened, and it was never done. So that was the case that actually never ever found any reason or any conclusion except with the decisions and the statements made by the justices of the Ninth Circuit Court of LA. You could go over these documents. They are public documents. It is very easy to source them, as a matter of fact, and it would be very interesting for you to read this, especially lawyers today here in the Philippines would want to find out, and perhaps even those in media who keep on repeating, the dictator stole this, the money, he stole that much, he stole several billions. If you would go over the decision of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals already, then you would see that once and for all, that was the decision that they have come up with.